Today, I'd like to share with you my journey from a pretty heavy phone user to someone who's in a lot better place but still scrolls. I've shared bits and pieces of my journey in my videos for the past 2 months, but I've never done kind of a full account of where I started and where I am now and how I got there. So I'd like to do that today. It started in 2020. If you don't remember that year, that's when the pandemic started. And just like everyone else, I went through a lot of change. I think the pandemic was a lot harder on a lot of other people, but we all went through a huge amount of change at that time. I'm not going to dive into it. If you lived through that time, you're old enough to remember, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The one difference for me is that we were pregnant with a baby during that time. And we had a 2-year-old, and then all of a sudden we had an infant that August in the midst of the pandemic. And 30 minutes after he was born, we bought a new house, the house I'm at now, the property we're at now, our dream home. And it didn't start as our dream home because it was a 150-year-old brick farmhouse that was in tough shape and needed a lot of work. So what we needed to do was put 2 years of weekends into this house to get it so we could actually move into it. And it's still not done. I'm still working on it today. So that's a lot of change, right? We have 2 little kids. You've got a pandemic. You're doing a home renovation. Well, then my company got acquired, and not only was that change for me, but I was leading change for between 20 and 30 other people. So I was taking a lot of that on, and it was just a lot of change. And I call it a funk, but honestly, I was depressed, and I didn't realize it at the time. I had to get out of it to realize it, which is a really scary thing about depression. No, Molly? Sorry. She can knock the phone down sometimes, and I don't want her to do that today. Where was I? It was just a ton of change. That's kind of the bottom line. Is I was going through a ton of change, and I was depressed, and it took me a while to get out of it. And that's kind of the crazy thing about depression, is you don't really know when you're in it, so how do you really know when you're out of it? I think I'm in a much better place, but I realized when I was getting out of it that, one of the things that was not going well in my life was my phone use. If you've had 2 children, if you've been around children or have children, you can understand that they really demand your attention. And my 2 kids are no different. And when you're trying to split your attention, that attention with your phone too, that's really not fair to them. And that was something I wanted to change. I wanted to be on my phone less around my kids, because I was spending all day at work and then coming home stressed, and then, not taking it out on them, but like they definitely weren't getting some quality time with their father. So that was kind of the impetus for looking at my phone habit and seeing how do we make a change here. And so I had done things like everybody else, and I tried blocking the app, uninstalling the apps. Well, then I would just reinstall them, blocking the apps. Well, I would just go on the website, accessing like mirrors that you can find and just going on that instead. I just kind of got around that. And I did realize at one point that I could start to use my laptop, because one of the things I really didn't want to give up my phone for was chatting with people. I had a group chat on Facebook and some group chats in text, and I didn't want to give up that little bit of connection. Well, I realized that Google created messages.google.com, so I was able to do that on there. And then I realized I could go on messenger.com and go on that there. So I knew I could use my laptop for these things. I had everything I needed on my laptop, and I didn't need my phone. So then I created a rule where I put my phone upstairs when I was at home. That was my step to cut the phone out of at least when I was at home. And that worked because I could do stuff on my laptop. And the laptop just inherently is less engaging. You're not really scrolling. There is still an infinite scroll, believe me. But it also doesn't kind of like block me as much with my kids. They they don't seem to attack me like when I'm face into a phone. It's kind of like away. It's not like you're, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. So I was able to put my phone up there, which also meant I was able to cut my phone out of my bedroom, which was a huge change that I made at that time. But I was still using my laptop. And so what was I doing? During the depressive state, I was doing Instagram, Facebook, and Reddit. Instagram never really hooked me with reels. Short form video is one of the worst things you can do. If you're doing that, we can work on that, but I don't do that. I didn't do that. I was using Instagram mostly for a blog that I was writing about craft beer. I've been doing that for 9 years. I was so burnt out on that when I finally decided to stop doing that, I was able to just cut out Instagram completely, because that was my whole feed was beer. And so I got that out of my life completely, and that was easy to get rid of Instagram. It's still installed on my phone. I just never go to it because all the notifications are turned off. I still feel guilty because people chat with me on there and I never respond to them because I don't check it. But that was an easy one. Well, that left me with Reddit and Facebook, and I was still using that on my laptop. And I was still finding myself scrolling for long periods of time. So the next step I took was I created another rule that said unsubscribe to anything that makes you angry. I have a really bad doom scrolling problem. Just all the election cycles that had gone on through the big period of change in my life did not help my mental state. And I was still in that. And at the time I was quitting, it was everywhere. It was every subreddit. Even I Think You Should Leave subreddit, which I was there for the memes, was just overwhelmed with political content. So I had to unsubscribe to that. I had to unfollow people on Facebook. I had to block people on Facebook. I blocked friends and family members who I've since unblocked, but I had to do that just to protect not only my mental state, but reduce the level of engagement with these platforms. The other thing I started to do was subscribe to things like artists I liked, or architecture, or things of that nature, things that interested me, but didn't really capture my attention that well. Not nearly as much as the rage stuff. So those two combinations of things eventually created a scenario where I was using it less, or at least it was easier to stop using it. And I remember this one day in particular. It was a Saturday morning. My wife was working, so I was on kid duty. And they were watching TV in the morning, and I was on my laptop scrolling. And I must have been on there for 2 to 3 hours, and now the kids started to kind of attack me and beg for my attention. They had gotten sick of their show, so they go to Dad, and they're crawling all over me, and I'm getting upset just because they're up in my face. And so I finally stormed off, closed the laptop, and went to do the dishes. Something I'd probably been avoiding because it stacked up because I was scrolling during the week, right? And so I had a big pile of dishes I had to do, and I started to do those things. Well, the nice thing about doing the dishes is you can't use your phone. You can still watch stuff, which I do occasionally, but you can't scroll. And so I had it off. I was just in my head, and I was trying to think why I was so angry. My first thought was I was angry at my kids. Well, that quickly faded because I shouldn't be angry at my kids. They're just trying to hang out with their dad, father of the year here. So I got over that quick, but then I realized, well, I'm still angry. What made me angry? And there was like kind of a low grade like anxiety about the whole situation. I definitely realized that it was something to do with scrolling. And I had this profound realization that if someone had asked me what I'd been consuming the last 3 hours, I couldn't name a single thing. A single thing I watched, a single thing I read, nothing that made me angry, nothing that I found particularly interesting, nothing that told me something new piece of information, nothing. I couldn't name a single thing. And I realized at that point, like, what is this really doing? This is not adding anything to my life. And so soapy hands and all, I went over to my laptop, opened it up, and I finally blocked those websites on my laptop. So they were blocked on my phone, they were blocked on my laptop. I had no way of going into them, in theory. And I went back to do the dishes, and I, went on with my day and had a great day. Didn't really think about it at all. So that night, we were putting our kids to bed, and it was my wife's turn to do the kids. So we both kind of get them ready and get them upstairs, but then she took over and started to read books to them or whatever, get them calmed down in bed. And then I went downstairs, and what I did was what I did every other night. I sat on the couch and I opened my laptop. I went to Reddit. It was blocked. I went to Facebook. It was blocked. And it was at this point that I remember, oh yeah, I blocked these websites earlier today. I can't go on them, or I shouldn't go on them. And I had deadened my engagement enough that I knew there was really nothing there waiting for me. What was I really going to do? Nothing. I wasn't going to do anything at all. So I was able to kind of close the laptop and set it aside. I remember closing it, setting it aside, and I remember just sitting there and listening. And I heard this sound, clink, clink, clink. It was the dishwasher. Now the dishwasher had been on for hours, but I hadn't heard it. You know, your mind kind of filters that out. Well, when I was listening, I was like, oh, there's other sounds going on. I could hear my wife upstairs reading to the kids. I could hear them giggling or whatever. And I could just hear house sounds, things like that. And, you know, the anxiety started to kind of fade. And I didn't want to watch TV. We had 6 streaming services, but I didn't want to watch anything because my attention was so shot that I couldn't really sit through a TV show. Definitely not a film. So what could I really do? Well, I opened up, you know, I reopened my laptop and I stared at a blank page and I finally realized, oh, I could go on YouTube. So I went on YouTube and I went to my watch later list where I save videos, and I found a yoga video that I've been meaning to do. I said, oh yeah, I got some yoga stuff for Christmas. I hadn't used it and I wanted to. So I laid that out and I did yoga, and it was nice. I haven't done yoga at home since. I've done yoga elsewhere, but not at home, and maybe I should. But that was kind of the beginning, like a almost ceremonial repair of my attention. So that was the next phase I went into, like just watching longer and longer videos on YouTube until I could watch TV shows. And now I'm really back into films, something I used to really be into. And now I'm back into it because my attention is long enough that I can even watch a foreign language film and read the subtitles because my attention is back. And that's something that would have been, that was totally out of the question. When I was watching TV shows or whatever, I would have my laptop on and I'd be doing stuff on there or on my phone or whatever. That was how much I had divided my attention between these things. And just needing that constant noise, I don't know, to deaden my senses, I don't know. Well, now, that kind of brings me to today. I've still have these things blocked. Occasionally I can unblock them for a specific use and then reblock them, and I have no issue with that. YouTube's kind of replaced a lot of that for me, so I'm actively working on building a framework for my YouTube use that gives me kind of rules around what can I actually do. And my laptop's still an issue. I'm not perfect. I still scroll a ton on my laptop, but it's pretty much just YouTube, and I'm actively working to cut more time out of my life. But I've done, you know, device detoxes for whole weekends, for extended trips. I've driven around without my phone. I'm in a lot better place. I can go multiple days without charging my phone, which is kind of a great signal for me that I'm on the right track, that I'm, you know, if I'm going 3 days and my phone's still not out of battery, it's a great sign that I'm not using it as much as I used to, because I'm sure you're familiar with always having to charge your phone at the end of every day because you've used it so much. And I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I'm still on that journey, and this is not overnight. And I hope the message here is that change, meaningful change, can't really happen overnight. I've spent maybe 2 years of active work just trying to get better every single day. Just a little bit better, just make a little improvement today or this week, and experiment with different things to see what works for me. And that's how my method's really built. It's not about like one thing when with this one mindset shift and you'll stop scrolling forever. No, I don't think that's realistic. I think the people that you hear about that quit anything cold turkey, they spend a lot of time up here, or something big happened in their life that shifted their mindset, and then they were able to just overcome something out of sheer force of will. I don't think that's realistic for most of us. I think what we need to do is experiment our way out of it, and then look back in a year and say, wow, what a huge change I've made. But in the moment, it didn't really feel like that. And so that's the method that I'm created and that I'm helping people with and teaching people. And if you have these issues, I'd love for you to subscribe to my channel. Most of the viewers of my videos are not subscribers. For me, it's just a great signal that I'm providing value to you and that you're out here. YouTube's going to show you the video regardless of whether you subscribe or not. So it's really kind of just for me, just to know how many people are out there watching. So I'd love it if you do that. And if you know of anyone else in your life that's dealing with these kind of issues with their phone, share this video with them. Let them know that someone else went through this, they've got a way out, and they're here committed to helping them. So share the video, share the channel. I would really appreciate that. And I appreciate you. Until next time, bye.